What's happening, fishing friends? Welcome to another episode. Today we're taking a look at Daiwa's new compact reel, the Daiwa Tatula 80. As with all my reviews and unboxings, I will take you through all the features of this reel, compare it to some similar reels on the market, and then go through what I think are some of the pros and cons and how I think this reel is going to fit into my arsenal. So enough yapping, let's take a closer look. The features, yes, I'm excited to show this thing off. Nice, small, compact little reel. So starting off, I got the 7:1 gear ratio. You can see there's 7:1 to 1 gear ratio. It does also come in a 6:3 to 1 and 8:1 to 1. And with this size, it does bring in 28 inches per turn of the handle. Weighs in at 6.3 ounces, has a total of 9.9 pounds of drag, and has a 7+1 bearing count. Now when we get this in hand and actually look at it, I mean, it's a beautiful little reel. Well, until you break it. You all know I'm a fan of like pretty, plain, bland looking stuff, and the all black with like kind of that holographic-y iridescent spider on the side. Really just some white and kind of silver accents. It's a very sleek looking reel, I think. Now it does have that zero adjuster here, so you can see it's real small. It's not meant to be adjusted. They set these, or should be set, just to remove side-to-side play. You can barely feel the littlest movement, but now if you were to adjust this, you can move it around. I don't necessarily usually do that with the zero adjusters, but it does not click. Star drag does click, and see, it does have the Zion star drag there, which usually something is, well, you'd find on the more expensive reels. And you can see here the Daiwa Tatula SVTW, which is a $200 reel as well, doesn't even have that. But the more expensive Zillion does have it. You can see there the Zion star drag, and that's what, $300, $400 reel, something like that. Now this does have the smaller 90mm swept handle, which means it's bent in here, swept, back a little bit so it goes in. It does give it a nice compact feel, but you can see, I believe the Tatula 100 here, this has the 95mm, and you can see the size difference here. Hold on. Not the easiest to do on camera there, but you can see this is bigger. And also I noticed the knobs, get that set up like that. The knobs are also just a little bit smaller. Interesting. So Daiwa does say on their website that this is intended to be a finesse reel, so up to 10 or 12 pound line. So it's not like I'm going to be putting 20-pound line on this and pitching and flipping heavy stuff with it. Did I say it's only got 9.9 pounds? Yeah, 9.9 pounds of drag. So again, not something I'm going to be looking to flip and pitch the heavy pads to, but it does have an aluminum frame and an aluminum handle side plate. So I think this is going to pair well with some of my finesse jigs, single hook deals, shaky heads, stuff like that, where I'm going to be setting the hook hard as opposed to some of the less expensive, graphite frame or even graphite side plate reels. That's one thing I love about Daiwa is they feel like tanks. I mean, when you set the hook and such, they just feel so good, so melded together. Now this reel does also have the MagForce brakes, which I think are some of the best brakes on the market. A Daiwa reel, you all have seen me use the 100, the Elite. They're hard to backlash. Once you get them set in, they're just so good, and that's because of the brakes. Now, setting them is really easy. It's all external. You just move this dial here, like so. I already pre-loosened this, but this is how you get the side plate off. You unscrew this, use a screwdriver to start it, and then you can just use your thumbs. And then your side plate comes right off. And the brakes on these are interesting. If you've never seen a Daiwa reel inside, these are magnets right here. So what happens is the spool actually has a little cone, or an inductor they call it, right here. Now just the regular Tatulas like this cone moves out with centrifugal force. So as you cast it, this is spinning really fast, this cone pushes out. And as the force slows down, or as this spool slows down, it slowly starts going back in. So you can see there, I grab it, not moving any of this, it goes in and out. This does not twist. So if I try to twist this, it does not twist. Now Daiwa usually says that the SV spool, so that's something on this one. This is the Zillion, one of the old Zillions. The SV spool on some of their other expensive reels, and actually, funny enough, the other $200 competitor, I guess, within the same line, the Tatula SVTW, does have the SV spool, but they say the SV is better for smaller, more finesse baits. The inductor is a little bit different, so instead of this pulling out, this actually twists. So this doesn't take all that spinning force. This piece twists out. So you can see when I twist this, that inductor moves. So even with the lightest, little startup inertia, if you're flipping and pitching, or just, a light lure that doesn't have a bunch of weight to pull on this, even the slightest rotation. Couple things to note, the inductor on this, the 80, is also bigger. So you can see the regular non-SV spools, the inductor is a little bit bigger. And what's interesting about this spool is, look at the size of it compared to my thumb. So this is the 80, the size 80 spool, the one we're talking about. I can't fit my thumb inside there. Now with the regular spool, my thumb fits inside there with extra room. So This is a narrower spool. You can see compared to the other spools, like for example of Daiwa, a narrower spool. Twist that side plate back on, push the screw in and tighten that in. And that's another thing I think that makes these feel so solid. It's not just a twist in deal. There's actually a screw that holds this non-handle side plate in. That's what I mean. These things, when you feel a Daiwa, if you've never ever used a Daiwa reel, you get it in your hand, they just feel solid. The other interesting thing is the T-Wing feature. Now, let's see if we can get this to focus. But when I put the T-Wing in, if you've never seen the T-Wing, what it does on a Daiwa reel is when you push the thumb bar down, this little T-Wing drops. And it makes it so when you cast, the line has less friction. You know, if you have just like a little tiny hole there, less friction with the T-Wing because it can go back and forth on that spool without rubbing around on stuff as much. But then once you take the handle and click it into place, it's got the little tiny line guide there where the line sits, and then as you crank it, the line sits in there and ravels onto your reel nice and even. Now, I don't like Daiwa reels if you run like braid to a leader. Oh, gosh, stop dropping it, Debo. Braid to a leader, that connection knot gets stuck in there. If it's a knot that goes down into it, if you've got a knot that's up above it and never goes into reel, shouldn't be an issue, but keep that in mind if you use connection knots. Now, the other thing that I thought might be interesting is look at the gap. I know it's going to be kind of blurry here, but once you put the T-Wing down with that smaller, more narrow spool, look at that. That T-Wing has more room there to allow that line, as opposed to something like the Tatula 100, which has that slightly wider spool. You can see there, it's got more room side to side. So is that going to help the casting distance? I don't know. You know, so you've got a number of things that come into play in casting distance. Bearings, where are they? Weight of the spool, type of line rod. I don't know. We'll see. But I think all in all, those are the features on it. It's a nice, comfortable little reel. Awesome feel in hand. How does it compare to some of these other reels? Well, let's take the Daiwa Tatula 100. You can see it's shorter, so it doesn't come up as much. So on the 80 here, a shorter profile this way. Length is really close. I think the 80 is just a tiny bit shorter. You can definitely tell the difference when you get it in hand. The front here is not as big. That's one thing about Daiwa reels I think people either love or hate. Your finger goes across here and sits pretty much straight. As opposed to a loose reel, a lot of the other reels, your finger almost curls. So it's got more of a wide nose as it goes out toward the end on most of the Daiwa reels. The 80, you can see though, it gets a little bit shorter. It's not as big out there, or oblong or obtuse, I don't know what the right word is, but it doesn't flare out as much toward the end. The loose here, I wanted to compare to some reels in the similar price point, and then just some reels that people are familiar with. Look at that. Definitely a shorter profile, again, compared to the Lose, and when I looked at them side by side, this is just slightly shorter this way as well. So even a little bit more compact than a Lose. So if you have a Lose, you like that small feel, but you really want, you know, something smaller, a little bit even more compact, have small hands or whatever, this is going to be perfect for that. Or if you're flipping and pitching, you know, a Texas rig, a light jig, something like that all day, this is going to be perfect for that. I mean, your hand just, you get such a good positive grip on it with that little frame. It's pretty much the same story with all the reels that I kind of checked and looked at. Again, in the $200 price point from Abu, not even close. This is definitely a shorter reel, up and down, a little bit shorter from nose back to the thumb bar too. This is the Abu Garcia Revo STX. Got this baby 50% off, 99 bucks. Awesome reel, again, just not as quite as small of a profile, and this in hand actually feels really good, but definitely wider this way as well when you look at them compared side to side here. You can see it's a wider. And one that kind of confused me was the Daiwa Tatula SVTW. So again, this is a $200 reel. They just come out with this new version. Was that last year or the year before? A couple years ago? I don't remember which, but they have the old version and then this newer version. And these are both $200 reels, so I was a little confused on like, well, why would they come out with that? They're pretty much the same. I don't know. They're also going to have the Daiwa Tatula 70 SVTW with that SV spool. So I don't know, kind of interesting there. I don't know if they're going to, you know, kind of move some of the lines around or move some of the reels, you know, as what's going to be available for products. But again, this reel's even a little bit smaller than that. So not by a ton, but you can definitely feel it when you get it in hand. You can see my finger kind of comes to the edge there. When I get in this one, my finger goes up over it. So again, not like crazy inches difference, but when you put it in hand, you can feel that it is a nice small profile reel. So when I think of using this reel, I keep going back to what Daiwa said, right? They said it's more of a finesse reel, up to 10 to 12 pound line on this. Smaller finesse cranks come to mind. You know, both of these are a 1/4 ounce. You know, there's some of those that are kind of tough to cast, lighter lures. If I'm going with a lighter line, let's say I put 10 pound line on this, I think that's a perfect way to do this. You don't have a ton of line that you don't need. Now, I still need to get it out to do some casting tests to see how does it compare to some of these other reels, but I think this is going to be a perfect candidate for some smaller crankbaits. Yeah, if you like some finesse spinner baits, smaller swim jigs, swimming a small swim bait like this, yes, I know these are only 1/8 ounce heads, but once you put a soft plastic on there, I've actually thrown this exact 1/8 head with a Reaction Innovations Little Dipper on my SLX 10-pound line. It's more important that you have the right rod, right? A lot of reels you can put 10-pound line on, but you have to have the correct rod that's going to load that. The reel just aids in it. If it's a reel that casts lighter lures better, it's going to be that much easier of a day. So you have to have the right line, rod, and reel, which, comment below, would you like to see me bring some of those back? I used to go through the whole rod, reel, line relationship and how all that comes into play with the lure. Let me know. But, you know, some of these, of course, some little finesse jigs, you know, you might have 12-pound line on a rod, but if it's a cranking rod, you know, a real parabolic rod, you're probably not throwing a flipping jig like this, you know, a little compact jig that's got a pretty stout hook on it. So if I've got a softer, you know, maybe rated up to a 1/2 ounce, medium or medium heavy, something that's a pretty soft rod that can throw these 1/4 ounce lures, and I've got 12-pound line on it, perfect way to put it on there, you know, as opposed to saying, oh, the only rod in my arsenal I've got with 10-pound line is my cranking stick. Probably not going to have that good luck setting a hook like this on a cranking setup. So again, you know, swimming a jig, you know, pitching a jig, this is just a little 1/4 ounce. To me, that comes in perfect in mind for this little Tatula 80. How about shaky heads? Yes, I love to throw a 1/4 ounce shaky head on a baitcaster as opposed to a spinning combo because I feel like you need a medium heavy. Once you step up to the 1/4 ounce, or even some lures that just don't cast that great. Jerk baits, some of the balsa baits, they're kind of tough to cast, right? They get kind of wonky. Even some spinner baits, when you throw them in the air, they kind of, you know, want to hang up and stuff. I mean, the brakes on the Daiwa, that's the thing that I love most about Daiwa reels is the brakes are really good. Like, I think they're some of the best brakes out there. And, you know, I kind of went over the breakdown of how they work. You know, it's not like a centrifugal brake where there's a little brake, you know, pushing on the ring. And as soon as you don't have enough inertia for that brake, that little, you know, pad or pedal to push, it's done. There's no braking. You're relying on the spool tension, right? That's why I really like the Daiwa reels. I think they're really good casters. So for something like that where it might be a little bit tougher, even though it's not super light, something where you might normally have trouble on some other combos, I think something like this comes into play in a nice, compact little reel. And that's one of the big pros to this is maybe you're somebody who has smaller hands. Maybe you're somebody who likes a real good grip. Let me show you. This is a heavy Kistler argon rod. Now, I probably wouldn't pair these two together, but you know, a heavy rod like this, or some of these rods that are a little bit bigger, maybe in the handle, kind of in this area, you can put this little small framed reel on here and get an extremely good purchase, right? So maybe you even go up to 15-pound line on this and try it for some of those finesse jigs and stuff, but almost had that thing completely engulfed with my hand, and I've got pretty average hands. I can just barely palm a basketball, so not tiny, you know, not ginormously huge, but you can really get a good grab on it. And again, goes to that smaller, you know, side plate, a little bit smaller size overall. I think it's really handy that way. So my conclusion on this baitcaster, well, I think this is definitely a reel that's going to find its way into my rotation on the regular. Again, that small profile, you know, there's so many quote unquote small baitcasters out there, but I'm telling you, the way this thing fits in my hand, my finger lays nice and straight in the front. There's no sharp corners or anything. You know, I think I pointed out before, there's no screws or anything on the outside. I know some people have said they don't really like this here that tightens the side plate and holds it on. I've never had an issue with it. I mean, just in hand, it's smooth and glues, molds right into the hand really well. And another big thing is I think it's one of those reels that I can set up, you know, for flipping, pitching, smaller stuff. Again, I'm not talking about an extra heavy hook. Remember, this only goes up to 9.9 pounds of drag. So, you know, thinner things like the shaky head, something like this where I've got a single hook that I want to drive. I've got a good small compact combo in my hand so I can flip and pitch all day. It's not some big obscene thing. And I've got the rod paired up specifically for this. You know, again, my cranking rod with 10-pound line is going to be different than this with 10 or 12-pound line. Fishing little finesse jig, you know, you want to have the right rod for it, and I see this reel as being perfect for that. So comment below, let me know, what are your thoughts on the new Daiwa Tatula 80? Do you think it's a gimmick? Do you think the Tatula 100 or some other reel is better? I've given you my reasonings, but I want to hear from all of you. Comment below and let me know. So today's subscribe fishing friend is my guy, A Cast Today. Always watching my videos, support me on Instagram. And he said, you know, I'm excited to see this. And the 70, like I said, they're going to be having a 70 size of this, but in the SVs. Like, why do they make both? I don't know. It's a good question. I, however, think this is going to be a pretty fun reel to test. So thank you for watching, and thank you everybody else who continues to support and watch my videos. It means a ton to me, dang it, but it's late. I need to edit, so thank you all for watching. Until next time.